Yeah, hi there. My name's Justin. I'm just looking to talk to Dr. And he said if I phoned, you guys would patch me through to him around this time.
What's up? What can I do for you? You had an MRI, yeah. Yeah, I'll just read you what it showed. A little bit of a compression fracture in the L1 vertebrae. And then that between the L4 and 5 vertebrae, there's discs in between. There's a right central disc protrusion. There is another disc protrusion, a little bit of irritation, or a little bit of arthritis in the joint, a little bit of thinning at the ligament that holds everything together, compression of the right S1 nerve, which would make sense, and that would cause you symptoms going into your right lower leg. So more importantly, how are you doing now?
Sciatica refers to pain that runs down your leg.
It can start off as a dull ringing in the ears.
So it's a perception of a sound or a noise in the ear.
Irritable bowel syndrome is a common disorder that affects the large intestine. IBS is a mix of belly discomfort or pain that occurs together with troubling bowel habits.
Insomnia can affect a person's health in a number of different ways.
That means that nerve, one of the nerves, so L5 nerve, S1 is being pinched in your back. Most likely the disc is popped out, pressing on that nerve, on that sciatic nerve, and that's what's causing the nerve, that's what's causing the pain down the leg.
Chronic pain is pain that comes and goes over a longer period of time.
Depression oftentimes will create this sense of helplessness or hopelessness.
As the simplest word for it is pain. But pain, of course, it's so non-specific. It's that loss of self.
And it's almost as though you have an enemy within.
In 2015, I started to experience pain and other physical symptoms. It all started from a blood test that I got, which showed elevated levels of mercury. After that, things spun out of control. I started to feel unsafe in my own body. The physical pain and other distressing symptoms wouldn't go away. During that time, I was training really hard for a career as a stuntman in the film industry. My body was taking a lot of hits. I got an MRI done on my back to see if something would show up to explain some of the pain I was in. My MRI showed bulges, a fracture, compressed discs, herniations, arthritis, and other physical abnormalities. Signs, I was told, back problems relating to sciatica. I was still confused, however, to why other parts of my body were in so much pain, and that MRI still didn't explain the other symptoms I was experiencing. I kept getting tests done, seeing more doctors and more specialists. I was given prescriptions, supplements, physical programs, detox programs, restrictive diets, and a number of other things to try to combat the symptoms I was experiencing. Over the next year, I tried everything I was recommended and more. It's just that nothing worked. My symptoms got worse. It started to become hard to even walk around. The pain was excruciating, and at times it became the only thing that I could focus on. It would wake me up in the middle of the night and keep me from sleeping unless I downed a bunch of strong painkillers. But even then, it wasn't enough. I wasn't digesting food. I was always tired. I had migraines. My ears would ring, sometimes violently. I was pretty freaked out. I quit working. I had to move back in with my family. I couldn't support myself. I kind of felt like things were just continuing to spiral downhill. It was really confusing how I went from being such a healthy guy to bedridden in such a short time. The thing is, I had seen it happen to someone close to me not too long before. My brother was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition called Anklosing Spondylitis. After back pain he had didn't go away. The doctors told him that his spine was slowly fusing together. They told him pain would be a part of his life from then on, and it would be hard for him to do much physical activity. They said this disease progressively got worse, and sometimes people ended up in wheelchairs, immobile and in constant pain. They said there was no cure. Over the years, I watched him get consumed by his condition. Barely a day went by where he wasn't in pain. He stopped doing everything he loved. I watched him take on the posture of a 90-year-old man at 20-something. Our symptoms were eerily similar, and doctors told us that there was a genetic component to this condition. My family urged me to get the test that he got, to at least give me some clarity as to what was going on with me. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even imagine the idea of being in pain for the rest of my life. I told my family that I didn't want to chase a diagnosis. I was angry, but really I was scared. It seemed like this was just going to be the way things were. Days felt bleak for the both of us in those times. Our old lives of being pain-free seemed to be an echo of the past. At one time, we both promised each other that if our situation got to be too much to handle and we ever thought about doing anything crazy, we'd call each other first. Those calls did happen. But this story doesn't end like that. We never gave up. We kept searching. My journey brought me to teachings and perspectives on the mind and body that I had been oblivious to before.
The oldest classical book about medicine is actually not about medicine. It's about the relationship between human being and nature, between the body and the soul.
Because what the medical model does, whether with mental illness or physical illness, it makes two separations. It separates the mind from the body, so that what happens to us emotionally is not seen to have an impact on our physical health, number one. And number two, it separates individuals from their environment, so that we try to understand individuals in separation from their actual lives.
Since the mid-50s, medicine has become increasingly, mechanical. Increasingly a matter of let's identify what's wrong and then let's fix it. Fix it with a knife, or fix it with a drug, or fix it with something else. But the idea that the mind might be playing a role in these things is totally absent from medicine today.
But if you trust your mind, then it will tell you many lies and you'll believe them.
So the pain body will begin to feed on your thought processes, because your thinking will reflect the energy field of pain body.
In some ways, when I started to learn about how closely related the mind and body are, it felt like a remembering, something I had already known. One doctor told me that something had finally caught up with me. He was referring to something maybe I had picked up traveling, or a condition I had been ignoring for too long. He was right. I was running, and something had caught up to me. But what I was running from was myself. And what had caught up with me was the feelings and emotions I had been pretending I didn't have for far too long.
And so, trauma is not the external event that happens. Trauma is the impact of that event, which is the disconnection from ourselves. And because it can be subtle and happen over time, we actually adapt in such ways that we believe we're the adaptations.
Now you also use the term self. You see, when I say self, then you mustn't think of I myself, because that is only your empirical self, and that is covered by the term ego.
Ego, yes.
But when it is matter of the self, then it is matter of a personality that is more complete than the ego, because the ego is only consists of what you are conscious of.
Yes. When patients are afraid of their symptoms, pain causes fear. Fear causes more pain, and that often evolves into a vicious cycle of horrible and severe pain. And so if people understand that they can get better, that these nerve pathways are not going to harm them, that they can control them, then they can stop being afraid of the symptoms.
I had to take my attention completely off the physical, completely off any diagnosis that I had.
And recovery is another interesting word, because we just take it for granted, but think about it for a moment. What does recovery mean? It means that you find something that you've lost. You find something that you've lost, but whatever you found couldn't have been destroyed, and it must have been there all along, otherwise you couldn't find it.
I healed myself by realizing that my body is more than just a mechanical concept or a vehicle for my ego. I healed myself not by running, but by feeling. I had to stop and see how all my beliefs, stories, lies, and emotions were symbolizing themselves in my symptoms. I had to forgive myself. I had to stop running from the past. The only way out was through. I had to become aware of and dissolve the belief that I was a victim in any way. These symptoms turned into teachers. The pain turned into truth in some ways. I healed not by fighting, but by listening. It was pretty wild to realize that out of all the physical impact my body was taking, nothing was more harmful to my health than the internal impact of my self-abuse.
That you are aware that there is this being in you called the inner child.
The pressure that I was putting on myself and the reasons why I was doing what I was doing created an enormous amount of emotions, most of them I wasn't even aware I was feeling. I was so out of touch with my body, my feelings, that I didn't even see what I was doing to myself. I had to start looking at how I was thinking, what I was feeling, who I perceived myself to be. We can be our own worst critic, our own worst judge. We mistake the voice in our heads for who we actually are. We pretend the abuse we give ourselves doesn't do any damage.
And the first thing you want to do is you want to say to this child, oh, for the first time in creation, I am acknowledging your presence in me.
I healed myself from my symptoms without medical intervention, prescriptions, surgeries, restricted diets, or physical therapies of any kind.
And then the next thing you want to say to it is something very simple. I love you. And then you acknowledge the fact that all of the hurts and pains are data kept in this child, and you say to this child very simply, I'm sorry. Please forgive me for all the accumulated memories that you experience as sorrow, as grieving, as pain.
I healed myself with the help of others who acted as guides, who had been where I had been and had found a way out, who had found their own medicine. And as for my brother, he did the same. He healed from something they told him there was no cure for. His journey and mine were the same in a lot of ways. We helped each other out. We traded insights, findings, hugs and tears, and eventually we found our medicine. It's in this spirit I created the Tao Within. This service is a guidance system so that others who are feeling lost in symptoms, pain, diagnoses, and confusion can be helped to their own peace, their own power, their own medicine. It's ironic to see that it took trying everything and feeling like I was left with nothing before I realized I was looking in the wrong place. What I needed was with me all along. I just had to look within. I'm thankful for this journey and for this life. If this story resonates with you and you feel like you're lost in symptoms and diagnoses that make no sense, if your life is full of chronic pain, I want you to know that there's a way out. You just have to start the journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have physical symptoms, and for some of you they are severe, but there is nothing wrong with your back, or your shoulder, or your knee, or your foot. They are perfectly normal from the standpoint of how your body works. Your pain is the result of a process initiated by the brain to protect you from feelings that you have inside that the brain considers to be too painful, too sad, or too threatening. But remember this, we have demonstrated in thousands of patients that the same brain that brings this on can make it go away.